The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Jimmy Song, Bitcoin developer.
Hey everybody, good to be here again.
Tone Vase from Liberty Life Trail.
Hi everyone, still coming to you from Milan, Italy, here at the Blockchain Lab, where there's really cool stuff going on here. If you guys are ever in Milan, Italy, this is where you want to be.
Jeffrey Jones from the Bitcoin News Show.
Hello guys, welcome and thanks for joining.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1, ICO bans. South Korea followed in the footsteps of China today, banning all ICOs, aka initial coin offerings. While unlike China, South Korea has not banned Bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies, instead taking aim at the unregulated ICO market and regulating it. Additionally, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States has taken an interest in ICOs, saying that he's concerned about the effects that ICO pumps and dumps could have on retail investors. Jimmy Song, is South Korea and China's approach correct? Should countries ban ICOs to protect their citizens from potential fraud?
Well, Korea apparently did this just now, starting to get into the Western Hemisphere. I personally don't think that governments should ban stuff. I think the market should play it out. Now, that's going to cause some harm. A lot of stupid people are going to lose a lot of money. But I hate, in general, just in principle, protecting people from themselves. I'd rather have them learn the hard way. And that's good for Bitcoin, because that gives of why Bitcoin has such a good value versus all these other things. And you know, instead of initial signals to figure out what to invest in, they can actually figure out the technological underpinnings and come into Bitcoin from that perspective, rather than, hey, everyone else is doing it, why am I not? I'd rather have them learn it that way. And I think that's better for Bitcoin, because that gives a more intelligent community that understands what's going on, instead of just people that are, you know, yelling or says the loudest stuff. I mean, that for me is the bigger. Rather not have governments ban it, but I mean, that is sort of the reality, and I'm okay with that too.
All right, I'd just like to ask everyone to give us a thumbs up and a share. It'll help more people find the show. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe down below. Tone Vase.
All right, so I'm gonna go the other way on this one, Jimmy. Man, if only I can hear myself from like a year and a half ago or something like that, when it's like, keep government out, keep government out. But that was because I was dealing with, you know, true innovation, something legitimate in Bitcoin. Now that the concept of Bitcoin has been taken by the free market and completely being used to sell outright scams, I'm on the other side here. Now, again, it's a delicate balance. It's always a delicate balance. You know, how do you explain to a regulator that Bitcoin is not a scam, but almost everything else is? And the only way you can't regulate things are the ones that begin like Bitcoin. You know, if someone wants to launch computer code with mining and fairly created tokens, that's fine. But when you have a guy standing on stage, and because a bunch of people think he's a genius, when in reality he's not, and he's selling you snake oil in a form of blockchain, the free market ain't gonna do anything about it. It's not. What's gonna happen is everyone's gonna lose their money, and then all of them are gonna run screaming to the government, wanting the government to do something, and they're gonna do something stupid. So I am fully in support of this. I think there is 100 years of laws that have been passed specifically for people soliciting money from other people for their own personal usage and investment. And this is all an ICO is. An ICO is just a way for one guy or ex co-founders to simply get money for something that they're doing. Whether something that they're doing is legit or is not legit is pretty much irrelevant when it comes to the laws on soliciting money from others. And you don't get around, though you may not like those laws, and you can try and change those laws, but the laws are there. So the moment you're selling something physical or something digital, the same laws apply. And going around those laws just because you have, the Ethereum scam to build on top of, doesn't change the fact that you're doing something wrong. So I am doubling down on my hatred for ICOs at this point, and the faster governments ban them, the better, because libertarians sure in hell aren't doing anything about it.
Jeffrey Jones.
Well, Tone, I guess I'll take maybe the other side as well, then go flip it back around here. And, I do believe that this news was a little bit off, because I do believe that the only ICOs that were actually banned in South Korea were the South Korea-based ICOs. So I don't believe that ICOs in totality were banned there, specifically the ones that were just out of South Korea. But whether that's true or whether it's completely banned, it's an overreaction, right? It's clearly an overreaction to what's happening in the space. People have discovered the ability to print money, and so of course that's going to easily get completely overwhelmed and completely out of control until we have some kind of rule sets, until the market matures and this type of thing. So, a lot of smart people are saying that, of course, right now ICOs are 99% scams, but that this is pretty much how things will work in the future 10 to 15 years from now. Because why not open up the liquidity to the whole world, right? Obviously, there's a case to be made for accredited investors and stuff like that, but in a market where we have a mature market, where we have a set of rules that does our best to make sure that scams don't run rampant, why not allow an ICO to somebody from across the world to be able to invest in your company? What if they believe in your company? We're talking about borderless technologies here. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about this is what Bitcoin. This is the ideology and beliefs of Bitcoin, is that we need to go borderless, right? We don't want third-party counter risk. We don't want a centralized authority saying what we can and can't do. But at the same time, these ICOs are not going to go anywhere. They are here to stay, whether we like them or not. And whether a single country like South Korea or China bans it, they're going to run rampant in another country. So the whole world is not going to be able to ban ICOs. They are going to get crazier, and eventually I believe that the market will mature. And we will have responsible, actual ICOs where anybody in the planet, just like they can buy Bitcoin, can invest in somebody's company. And I do like that idea. But just don't, just understand that this explosion of ICOs, this is early days, right? So it's going to eventually get a little bit better. But as it stands right now, I was talking on Twitter with some people talking about making some kind of scammy award, right, for ICOs. But I'm like, there's just no way. It's impossible. All of them are almost scams. So there's no point in making a damn award show. So, give it a couple years to settle down, to mature. And these types of technologies that allow and empower people across the planet to have access to a global liquidity, to have access to a global financial system that only 1% of the planet used to have access to, I'm all for that.
I'm going to take Tone's side on this, and I'm going to say that, yeah, the ICOs, it does allow everyone across the planet access to this, and it allows them the ability to lose their money. There's a reason that they don't let unaccredited investors invest in these early stage startups, because a lot of them really do go to zero. And when you buy Bitcoin, you're actually getting the product you buy. You're getting Bitcoin. When you buy an ICO, you're getting a promissory note or a stock or a security or some kind of thing that says that this company is going to try to build this thing, and maybe it's going to be popular or maybe it won't. And to me, it just seems like you're selling people a car without seatbelts, without airbags, without a steering wheel, and it's heading right into the wall. And all these people are going to lose their money, become victims, get mad at the government, who's going to take it out, not just on the ICOs, which are, again, just IPOs without any paperwork, and they're going to get mad at Bitcoin. So I think the governments are acting responsibly here.
What you're describing is the dot-com bubble, right? I mean, so what came out of that is what? Amazon, Google, and everything else. So, you know,
and a lot of people lost their money. And even then, the dot-com bubble was accredited IPOs. They had done the paperwork. So again, if you do the paperwork and they run away with your money, at least you have someone to sue. The problem with investing from another country into an ICO is that you have no one to sue. You have no redress for your grievances. It's like the galactic government. There's too many.
Is that not a free market, though, Thomas? Is that not the dream of a free market?
I don't think that the free market is a dream. I think the free market's what we had in the 1900s to the 1920s, where the rich were taking advantage of people, children were dying in factories, and stock swindles and other scams were running rampant, essentially stealing people's money. The reason that the regulation got in was to create a fair market, not a free market. But I think
it is because of regulation that we have the best stock market, you know, in the world. It's true.
Right. It allowed us to create companies that actually create products, that actually create wealth, that actually have value. Whereas if you look at the ICO so far, the most important event in ICOs is when Ethereum rolls their blockchain to get the $50 million from the DAO hacker back, and all those people don't lose their money. When they should have lost their money, they should have learned their lesson. It should have dampened the whole thing, but instead, they just kept spending and they just kept investing.
Yeah, let me just back in here real quick. You're right, Vortex. I mean, South Korea is going to ban South Korean ICOs, and China is going to ban the Chinese ICOs, right? Like, you can't ban other countries' ICOs, but ICOs can easily be banned because ICOs still depend on one guy standing in front of the room selling his bullshit, okay? This is the difference between ICOs and Bitcoin. So the funniest thing is I have all of these people trying to educate me on Twitter. And they're basically like, here's a funny one. He's like, people are calling me an idiot because I call Waves an ICO. And their argument is, Waves is not an ICO. It was an ICO, but it's no longer an ICO, right? So this is the IQ level of these people, right? This is who you're dealing with here, right? These are the investors that the government says, okay, so this moron says that Waves is no longer an ICO. That's like saying Amazon is no longer an IPO. Correct, but it was an IPO at one point. It doesn't, you can't change history saying, oh, well, Amazon was never IPO'd. If it started out, Ethereum is an ICO. It's not a current thing. It's whether it is or it isn't. I mean, again, like, this is the stupidity level of a lot of these people. And it's really, really sad. And my most recent argument to it is, you know, I don't recall people taking responsibility for buying an overpriced house 10 years ago, right? This is what happens, right? Everyone blamed the banks. You know what? I almost blamed the banks too. Like, my entire bank went down. I lost my job. I mean, I immediately went to JP Morgan, so I didn't actually lose my job, but a lot of people around me lost our jobs, and we got blamed. Like, we all got fired, we all went broke, and we were blamed. Meanwhile, these guys that bought an overpriced house went to court trying to get their house for free because the paperwork was filed incorrectly, okay? I've had these arguments back then. It's completely crazy. This is why I'm like, no, this ICO thing is completely ridiculous.
It's also worth noting that at the time of the Ethereum ICO, they didn't have any software. They didn't have a test net. You were essentially buying vaporware, hoping that they did write their project, which, as it turns out, they did write their project. But we had no indication of which direction it was going.
That's what I hope. Right. That's what I hope will go away as the market matures. Is just investing on a white paper, right? That's just ridiculous. It's just like the .com where they were just investing on a blank website almost.
Right, but again, the .coms were researched and they had business plans and they were much more thought out. I mean, the idea that pets.com was such a bad idea, it wasn't such a bad idea. It was just too early. If you look at it right now, I think a lot of people order their pet food online. It's not unreasonable. You order it every month. It's a subscription type product. Pets.com was just too early.
No, and speaking.
Well, I mean, you could say that about Pets.com, but Boo.com was and is and ever will always be a stupid idea. It was supposed to be a fashion portal where they burned through like $150 million, and all they did was like show people like wearing clothes like a virtual avatar wearing clothes, and that was supposed to somehow make money. I don't understand how that was supposed to.
I got better.
Echo look that looks at your clothes and suggests you clothes. Cosmo.com was a bicycle delivery service. We now have Postmates. We have Uber Eats. A lot of these things are just too early.
I got even better examples than those two. I started doing research comparing ICOs to the .com boom. And what I can't even believe the shit that I'm reading. It's absolutely amazing. There was one stock that IPO'd at $30 a share. By the end of the day, it was $240 a share on the first day, okay? And I still say the reason why the .com boom got out of control is because companies like E-Trade and Scottrade created traders out of people that had no business being traders. The .com itself opened up trading. You no longer had laws on these. I mean, look, Jordan Belfort from Wolf of Wall Street, they weren't even breaking the rules. They were selling garbage, but they still had a list of credited investors that they were selling these penny stocks to. They were not really selling them to like these shoe salesmen or these taxi drivers. But when Scottrade and E-Trade came out, you know, now your taxi driver all of a sudden became a trader, okay? Like he would drive the cab at night and he would trade stocks during the day with Scottrade and E-Trade. I had my friends in college, 18 years old. We were in college during this time, and this guy's a finance major, like sitting there, you know, instead of going to class, sitting there trading on E-Trade, you know, like mostly like penny stocks because we didn't have much money back then. So this is what it
didn't exactly have long horizons that would allow these companies to develop. And you wonder with the ICOs, if they don't develop a product in the year, is everyone going to sell? Is it over for that ICO?
Right, but here's the analogy. Oh yeah, it's totally over for the ICO, but here's the analogy, right? Like the .com brokerages opened up to non-accredited investors, but they still had to be 18 years old, they still had to be American, and they still needed at least $25,000 in an account to be day traders, the 3-day rule, basically. But if you have less than $25,000, you can hold for 3 days and then you resell. That's a feature. That's not a bug. That's a regulatory feature, 3 days. People are crazy that want to remove that. So it opened up to this new group of people that had no business trading. But now, after the .com crash and after the 2008 crash, the average guy is no longer trading. The volume on trading has decreased because all of those people have learned their lessons, okay? But here comes the crypto world. Unlike the previous tech boom that opened it up to not very sophisticated investors, now you have no age restriction. Now you have no geographical restriction. Because look, no matter how you slice it, an 18, 19-year-old in the first world is pretty damn smart compared to someone in the third world, right? In general, on average, all right? So now you have any kind of barriers completely out the window. So you have even like less sophisticated traders coming in, and all of these guys are on Twitter making fun of me for not knowing finance and trading because they are expert traders because they're trading ICOs and making money. This is going to get so freaking ugly, but we're not even close to the levels of the .com bubble as far as valuations go. I pray we don't get to those levels because it's going to be bad. Because look, it may sound fun, but when you have this, 17-year-old, 18-year-old that thinks he has made $8 million from $300 and he doesn't cash that out and it goes to zero, I'd be happy. Let's just put it that way, because this is how suicides happen.
It's also worth noting that the age restrictions go the other way. I've heard that a lot of Chinese old ladies were investing in Ethereum and other ICOs, and they have no idea what they're buying. They have no idea the kind of risk they're getting into, and maybe someone else is making the investments for them. But that's why regulations happen. They're trying to protect the population that has no idea what they're buying.
Again, I completely disagree with this line of thinking that we need to protect people from themselves. I think that eventually just leads to a frustrated populace that's like, why aren't you letting me do stuff that I want to do? Why are you restricting my freedom? I want to point out that like there was a poker bubble like I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. And a lot of people that did try to play online poker, they lost a lot of money and they left, right? You need those suckers to lose. You need suckers. That's part of the whole thing. If you don't have the suckers lose, what you're going to end up happening is those suckers are going to go to invest in some other scam. And
no, Jimmy, that's not the same thing, man. Look, I disagree. Look, of course, I'm on your side here if you're going to talk poker, because no one is scamming you in poker. But if half of these poker sites, which by the way most of them are, what if they were colluding? You know, what if people were losing money because the poker sites were not regulated and they can cheat? If they were like literally taking people's money, now what are you gonna say?
Well, then, I mean, first of all, that would be fraud, right? Like you're not allowed to, if you represent one. I'm with prosecuting those people, because if you,
but to me, that's every ICO to me. But that's almost every ICO.
I mean, if that's the case, then don't ban them. Go prosecute them, right? Like I'd rather have people learn their lesson that way.
But that costs money, right? Like it costs the government way more to go prosecute every one of these things. I mean, what is the government going to do? Like I personally think that every co-founder of Ethereum should be arrested for what they've done, right? That's kind of my opinion. I think what they did was break security laws. Now, unless they can go back and change those laws, there is a reason why I never touched Ethereum from the beginning, because it was obvious to me that they broke security laws. And I don't know if you saw the podcast with me and Jason Seibert, who's a securities lawyer, and he says the same thing. They broke securities laws, right? There's a reason why smart people that knew what the hell was going on didn't touch Ethereum, and now all the dumb people have millions, right, for buying an unlicensed unregistered security.
For now, they have millions, but they all believe in it too much.
I think the market will play out, and I believe in the market. I'd rather have the market figure this out rather than government sort of dictating what is and isn't allowed. I mean, we were talking about like housing bubble before, and like you were saying, you know, it's because of, you know, asset inflation, because of normal inflation with the dollar. I would say, like, with these bans, be very careful what you wish for, because as soon as a government bans it, people are going to want it more. And that's just sort of the reality. And you can't just be like, hey, let's ban this class of stuff and think that that's the end of it. It's never the end of it. There's a black market. There's all kinds of other things. It gets even riskier, and dumb money finds their way to getting those things anyway. So I'd rather have them lose straight up. If you have suckers, they're going to try to lose their money as much as they can. The only way they really learn is by getting burned once or twice. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum it up, like Jimmy says, I mean, it is a slippery slope once we start bringing regulations. But like Tone and Thomas says, look, we're going to have these eventually, and I think that I think that we can let the market mature. I think we should let the market mature instead of just completely like just swiping it off and banning it. Right? We have to see how this is going to play out. And yeah, a lot of stupid people are going to get hurt, but like just like the .com, like the .com bubble, like Tone says, people learn. People have to get burned to learn. You have to burn your hand on the stove before you understand that the thing is hot. And that's just, you know, humans, that's the way humans work. And that's what I wanted to sum it up with.
All right, let's move on to the exit question. Will the United States ban ICOs? Yes or no? Jimmy Song.
Yes, eventually, but only because there will be a lot of people burned, and that's how the U.S. government acts, is when people get burned, then they make regulations. So, I mean, it's going to take a couple of years, I think. A lot of these ICOs have raised a lot of money, but it will come. I don't want it to come, but I think that's what's going to happen when people get burned.
Tone Vase.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're going to have to. They're going to just say, hey, you are an IPO. You have to follow the same laws as an IPO. Now, there could be a big discussion to lower barriers to go IPO, but we saw what happened when barriers were lowered to go IPO. We have the late 1990s, right? So they might loosen some restrictions on IPO. They might loosen some restrictions on in investing, but yeah, they're gonna take it out.
Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to go straight out ban it like that, just like we didn't straight up ban Bitcoin. I don't think that the U.S. is going to make that type of decision. I think they're going to wait and play it out, just like they did with Ethereum and the DAO. They're going to see how it goes, and they're going to make regulations accordingly. And look, some people in the chat are saying, oh, no, the WCN is just full-on government now, full-on regulation. And look, it's not like that. Bitcoin is going to disrupt regulation. It is going to disrupt government, yes, but this is going to take time. And in the meantime, we try to help people. We try to protect people. We don't want a full-on anarchy society yet. We simply don't have the tools to sustain a global anarchy society yet, people. There would be too much craziness. So we will get there. It's going to be a slow path, but now we have the internet and Bitcoin, and we will get to the point to where we all are self-sovereign.
The answer is yes, and it will happen soon. The United States will not allow China and South Korea to protect their citizens more than they protect their own citizens. Moving on to issue 2, Bitcoin hard forks. Oh, we'll go over there. Bitcoin Cash suffered a major setback this week as Xapo announced their plans to sell their customers money, even if they don't want to. Xapo announced their plan to sell their customers imitation cryptocurrency for Bitcoin. Let me see if I can switch back to the other window. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Oh, now it works. All right. For Bitcoin, which would automatically be deposited in their accounts. Simultaneously, LocalBitcoins announced that they would compensate their customers for Bcash, but they would not support future forks. Also in potential fork news, the No2X movement, which features users joining with the core developers taking sides against the corporations who signed the New York agreement, is starting to receive coverage in the Bitcoin media, with Bitsonline writing a glowing article celebrating the movement, and Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin, joining the No2X movement, even changing his Twitter handle to include the hashtag. Is this the end of Bitcoin hard forks? Tone Vase, will Bcash be the first and also the last of the successful Bitcoin hard forks?
Ooh, you had to sneak in the word successful in there. What do we define success, right? Because people think Ethereum is successful. I don't. I think it's atrocious. But, right, so what's success? Having a token of value. Well, NAM has value, Ripple has value, and these tokens shouldn't even exist. So it's hard to define success. So I'm going to switch the word success to the word buzz. Will there be hard forks that cause buzz that take up time on channels like this? Yes. The answer is yes. They're not going to be successful. They're all going to end in, another form of taking money from the uneducated to clever scammers, basically. So, I mean, the Bcash thing is good, I guess. See, this is a problem. See, this is a big problem. This is a big problem for me, actually. Like, as much as I hate Bcash, this is the Tone Vase perpetual contrarian position, right? As much as I hate Bcash and everything it stands for, I think Xapo is wrong. I think if you're gonna be the custodian and you have a hard fork and it has a significant market value, you need to now support it for your users. Same thing with Coinbase. I called out Coinbase for not giving people their Bcash. I'm for letting the market, in this case, I'm for letting the market decide. You're a custodian. People are giving you their Bitcoin on their behalf. And if it splits, this is the business you entered. Or get the hell out of this business and let people use Bitcoin peer-to-peer the way it was designed. Like, I'm against these companies in general. I'm against Coinbase. I'm against Xapo. I don't think these companies are doing the ecosystem any good. But I disagree with their decision to sell people's Bcash, even if it helps Bcash die faster. This is the Tone Vase contrarian position. Are we going to talk about the 2x, or is that a different topic?
We're talking about it a little bit, but we'll have it as the exit question as well. I would say our definition of success is similar to what Stephen Colbert, the character, said about Al Gore's book and movie, The Inconvenient Truth. He said that the inconvenient truth made money, therefore global warming is real. So in that way, Bcash made money, therefore it's real. On the other end, when Bcash loses all of its money, it'll stop being real. Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, you know, we can definitely touch on the 2x for the exit question, but I really think that this that the 2x is going to be the end of the hard fork FUD, right? I think that there's going to be mini forks. I think we got BGold coming up on October 25th. I think we got already another fork that's like worth a couple of dollars.
I thought the BGold crop was October 1st.
They changed it. They put it back to allow people to have more time.
Yep. This is hilarious. This is a joke, right? I mean,
I'm all for a bunch of forks before 2x, right? Because then we can just completely like rub it in as there's no reason whatsoever for 2x. Like,
I mean, the good news is I'll be home. I'm not going to be on the road, so I can actually, you know, I guess get my dividend, as some people like to call it. But they just changed it. It's not a big deal. It's who cares? It's clearly not important.
I'm sure they're ready. All the software has been written and tested multiple times. I'm sure they're ready.
Okay, no, come on, no, Tone, for real. Like, the reason behind it really was to allow more people to prepare, to allow exchanges to prepare, to allow the ecosystem itself to prepare, to get more excited about it, to get more preparation for it. You know, it wasn't just like an arbitrary thing. There was purpose behind it, Tone. It's not like, let's go ahead, we can, so we'll do it. You know, nothing like that.
But this is the thing, right? Like it's the proverbial we. It's not we. It's one guy. It's one freaking guy. I don't recall the user activated soft fork changing its date.
Right, absolutely, and you know that was a pretty huge movement compared to just this little one guy doing a BGold fork, right? But I think that there's going to be a lot of these forks. Again, we forget the name of it already, but it's worth like $2 or $3 right now on CoinMarketCap is what it says. So, I mean, we're going to have a lot of these forks, and they will eventually just dilute themselves down to nothing, all bringing attention and value returning back to the original chain. You know, the more forks, the more people are going to wonder why the original chain is so expensive, which is going to force people to look into it more, which is going to force the world to learn about why Bitcoin is valuable. And to me, you know, that's a good thing. So these forks are also going to put pressure on exchanges, right? Because now these exchanges have to be prepared for a new freaking fork every week or day, because, you know, 2018 is going to be the year of the Bitcoin fork. There's going to be a ton of them. And these exchanges are going to have to.
But here's the thing: these exchanges better have changed their terms and conditions, and they better have it in their terms and conditions something that says we will not have a hard fork. But then it goes to a slippery slope. What if there is a bug in Bitcoin and it needs a hard fork? Now what? This is why
this is why it's great. It's an experiment.
This is why there shouldn't be Bitcoin banks.
Yeah, you can definitely make the argument for that.
And at the same time, people are begging for the ETF. This is amazing.
Well, some people are begging for the ETF, not everybody, but Bitcoin is a pretty diverse group at this point, and it's still early days. So there's, you know, millions more people that will come into Bitcoin and try to define it what they think it is. But you know, this is my opinion. What I hope this does is it allows us to explore decentralized exchanges more, because decentralized exchanges, you know, when you're just talking about crypto to crypto, not having to deal with fiat or anything, you know, they can potentially better prepare for this in the software. They don't have to please a bazillion, you know, board members, a bunch of VCs or anything like that. They can just freely work on the software and make it how they believe it should be. So I hope that this actually puts enough pressure on exchanges, possibly even, you know, might bring an exchange or two down at some point from the sheer amount of forks that are going to be coming out, so that the ecosystem learns that we can not be storing our coins on these centralized exchanges. So, you know, we'll see what happens, but I love it because this is everything in Bitcoin every day is unprecedented, because this is one big experiment and nothing like this has ever happened before. So it is extremely exciting to see how this is going to play out. But as always, you know, Bitcoin will survive, just like the Bcash fork ended up being a non-event for Bitcoin, the original chain, I do believe that the 2x is going to come and go as an altcoin as well, and Bitcoin will keep producing blocks every 10 minutes.
Going back to what Tone said about the ETF, while I'm not going to beg for it, I do think that Bitcoin would benefit greatly by having access so that people could put it in their retirement accounts without holding it. There's a whole pool of money there. It's all pre-tax money. You understand how it's working. But that would give which to sell Bitcoin. And going back to Xapo and LocalBitcoins, I do support their decision not to support future forks. As Jimmy said, while I may have gotten a free laptop for Bcash and I liked it, the exchanges had to work overtime and overnight and very quickly to add these new forks. And if Jeff is right, if there's going to be a fork every week, if there's going to be 1 million forks in 2018, these exchanges, they can't handle it. They can't handle it safely. One of my chief complaints and concerns about Cryptsy the entire time is that they had so many coins. And I just didn't believe that they had as many developers as they had coins. And according to what they said, the Lucky 7 wallet had a flaw or a Trojan horse or a hack or whatever in it, and it stole their coins. And I don't know if that's true. The Cryptsy thing's a mystery to us, but it seems pretty true, and it seems pretty likely if you're going to be adding hundreds of forks, you're going to make a mistake. Maybe you're going to allow extra code that you didn't vet, and it's going to lead to more problems. But let's go to Jimmy Song for more on that. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Mute myself. Forgot to unmute myself. Yeah, so I did talk about this quite a bit in my Breaking Bitcoin conference talk. But basically, I think there's going to be a lot more hard forks coming, and that's just sort of a reality given how relatively successful Bitcoin Cash was. You got to remember, if you view Bitcoin Cash as an altcoin, it did fantastic. It got to number 3 on the CoinMarketCap charts, on its first day, pretty much, which is incredible. For an altcoin, you usually start way down at the bottom and you work your way up slowly. It takes years. And even Ethereum, it took them like 2 years to build their software. And then when they finally launched, they were like at number 4 or 5, and then they had to work their way up. So from an altcoin launch perspective, they were fantastically successful. They're like, they're about worth about 11% of what Bitcoin is worth. It's 1 Bitcoin is about 0.11 or 1 Bitcoin Cash is 0.11 Bitcoin. So this is something that I talked about in my talk. There's this whole fiduciary duty thing to consider. They get to hack the fiduciary duty of every exchange and every merchant and payment processor and wallet. They have an obligation to go and make their users whole with whatever forks that come out of it. And that presents kind of a problem. I think we mentioned Bitcoin Gold coming out in a month. Well, if you don't give them the Bitcoin Gold, if you are LocalBitcoins, or if you are one of Xapo or whatever, and you don't compensate them for this, users are going to sue, and they're going to have an excellent case because a lot of other exchanges are going to give it to them, and it's clearly something that only they control because they have possession of the keys. So it gets to be this very, very tricky situation, and these Bitcoin hard forks get to take advantage of this fiduciary duty, which is why I think there's going to be a lot more of them, right? Like there's going to be Bitcoin Gold coming out, and all these other things. Eventually, I think what will happen is I think what Vortex talked about a little bit, which is that we're going to have decentralized exchanges. And we talked about this on my show. Atomic swaps are coming, right? Not just Lightning-based instant atomic swaps, but on-chain swaps too. And as long as you have a script-capable coin, which most coins are, except a few, you can do atomic swaps on-chain. And that's going to become more of a reality. Exchanges will sort of be these order books, and you match and things like that, but you actually still have possession of your coins. I think that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to cause people to swap things, and that will sort of take out the liability for exchanges to have to compensate for all these hard forks. And that's when these hard forks are going to stop, because you're not going to get listed on these exchanges necessarily because they don't have the fiduciary duty anymore. Just to point out, Bitcoin Gold is coming up in a month. 2x is coming in 2 months. I think there will be a lot more coming after that, depending on how well those do. So, you know, this is a reality. I really can't see it not happening.
Hey Jimmy, you know what can what can help these exchanges for not getting sued? Not to sign dumb contracts supporting hard forks.
What contracts did they sign, Tone?
Oh, the New York
Agreement.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they still have to, like, if they possess something and, you know, the customer would have gotten it had they possessed it themselves, they're obligated to give. So I mean, this is almost orthogonal in my mind, in the sense that if, like, I'm kind of astounded that no one thought of this earlier, or thought of launching altcoins in this way. By having a hard fork, I mean, you get so many properties of you get so many desirable properties.
They've thought of it. Clamps tried to do it.
I mean, they didn't do it as a hard fork, though. They just tried to they used it as a distribution mechanism and not as a physical hard fork. And you know, that's kind of what Bitcoin Gold is doing. They're using you know, they're utilizing the current user base. They're going to have strong replay protection. One other thing that they're doing is they're obviously aiming at people that think miner centralization is a problem, because they're going to go to proof of work that's called Equihash. It's going to be GPU mineable. They want people to be involved in the mining. They're aiming at a certain audience, and you know, understand what they're doing, right? Like they don't like, you know, 2 or 3 players in China having all the hash power, so they're trying to do something else. I actually think that's a good thing.
I also think it's worth noting here that Xapo is in a unique position. Xapo is essentially cold storage or a vault for incredibly rich people, holders who don't want to know about Bitcoin. So as Tone said, it might be questionable for them to sell the Bcash, but essentially these people don't want to move their money around and they don't know how. And I think it's also worth identifying and accepting the odd position the exchanges are in here. They can't seem to do the right thing. If you look at the Ethereum Classic, the Ethereum split, the exchanges all didn't list ETH Classic, the original chain, because Vitalik told them no one would mine it. It turned out people did mine it, and one by one the exchanges broke that agreement and began listing it, whereas Bcash, a bunch of the exchanges lined up to list it, and now we're looking at it as a questionable listing because it's confusing with Bitcoin, it's confusing with the logo, and it's made their products harder to use. So the exchanges just can't seem to get it right, and we'll find out if this new idea of not listing them is the right move. It might not be. Any more on that issue? All right, let's move on to the exit question. Will there be a 2x hard fork in November? Tone Vase.
Yeah, I think there will be. I think Jeff Garzik is totally, you know, out of his mind, and they got to do it, right? I mean, if they don't do it, then all of their credibility is lost. So they're doing it either way. But the price of Bitcoin is going to ignore it based on 2 things. One, how many economic nodes say this is dumb, and the more important one, how many people download and update their full nodes to 0.15.
Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, there's absolutely definitely going to be the 2x hard fork. Like Tone said, there's just too much ego, too much, too many people said that they would already, so too much credibility to be lost. And people want free money. And now their number one reason, you know, for doing it literally is simply because they said they signed it. That's their number one reason for launching it now at this point. It's not science, it's not logic, it's nothing except for, hey guys, we signed an agreement, so we have to do it. And it's impossible to have logical debate with something like that.
Jimmy Song.
Yes, I think there will be a hard fork, but for a different reason than, you know, people's egos or something like that. I actually think it really only takes one miner, right? Like I actually think a lot of people will end up backing out. There's already Vaultoro and a few others that have already backed out of the agreement. I mean that I don't think is going to be as big of a deal. The big thing is, with a hard fork, you only need some mining hash power and some software, and you can do it anytime you want. That's part of what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin. There's no central authority. Anyone can fork, And that probably means that there's economic incentive, or at least ideological incentive, for one miner to do that. And that's going to cause a fork. But I've said this before, bring it on. I want it to happen. I think it's great for Bitcoin. I think what people will end up saying is, okay, this made Bitcoin more anti-fragile as a result. This going to secure, it's going to be a better secure store of value, and because it has more security. And I look forward to it. I want it to happen. I want there to be a hard fork fight. And I don't really care about replay protection. I mean, I know a lot of people are like up in arms about that, but to me, if you're a sucker and you don't know how to like move coin.
All right, one more from Tone. Go.
This is so funny, Jimmy. So I have come around to your way of thinking that hard forks are good, and you've come around to my way of thinking that replay protection is not necessary, because we had the opposite debate in the beginning.
But indeed we have, yeah, and it's good because we're converging, and I think that means that we're thinking along the right lines.
Right. But just one more comment. So you view it from a miner perspective, and I view it from the developer perspective. It's kind of like the thing, the military is developing all these weapons, and they're not going to just, throw them into the junkyard. They're going to want to use them. They want to test them. So if Jeff Garzik and one other clown spent a bunch of time developing code for this 2x hard fork, even if it's like 3 lines of code, they're not going to put it in the junkyard. They're going to go and use it.
I agree. While there's no user support, there's very little miner support. They'll have to do it anyway because they said they would. Even if it fails in the future and everyone makes fun of them, they just can't walk away from that edge. They're like lemmings. They can't say no. Moving on to issue 3, mainstream finance. They run the banks whose ATMs you use. They allow you to invest in the stock market. And now they're here to tell you about Bitcoin. The mainstream finance industry weighed into Bitcoin recently with Jamie Dimon saying that from Chase Manhattan Bank, calling Bitcoin a fraud. The head of the ECB in Europe reminding us that it reminded him as tulips and tulip mania in the Dutch. While an early investor in Bitcoin said that nobody could stop Bitcoin, while others agree with him, saying that the tulip comparison ignored all the work made by Bitcoin and all the technology of Bitcoin. And others still saying that the banks are afraid of Bitcoin. Jeffrey Jones, I ask you, is Dimon correct? Is Bitcoin a bubble, a fraud, nothing but tulips all over again? Or are the banks simply speaking out against a new technology that could completely wreck their industry, as the MP3 wrecked the music business and piracy wrecked the movie studios? Is the financial industry facing an existential crisis?
Well, it's kind of it's kind of funny that these people like Jamie Dimon and stuff are even allowed to comment on Bitcoin, because obviously they're on the complete opposite side of Bitcoin. So anything that they're going to say is going to be in favor of their business model, which of course is to control all money. And so they're going to not like it. And, there's already been people like CEO of JP Morgan coming out, or Morgan Stanley, or one of those, he came out and definitely defended Bitcoin as saying that it's something more than just a fad, and you guys covered that great on the Today in Bitcoin show. And it's just, people understand, you have to learn who to trust, you have to learn who to follow, and this is a trial and error. You cannot be listening to these freaking billion-dollar CEOs of banks and thinking that they have your best interest in mind. That's just absolutely insane. So no, Bitcoin is gonna. And another thing about these people keep saying Bitcoin's in a bubble, it's in a bubble, or comparing it to tulips. Look, tulip price never came back. It never came back to thousands of dollars anymore. Like, it's still only like $1 to buy a tulip. And Bitcoin continues to go up and fall back down to previous highs over and over again. And this is a measurable amount. Anybody can go on and look at this public data and see that Bitcoin does not go down. It goes up and crashes to previous highs and on and on and on. And, despite, people saying that people don't use Bitcoin because the mempool is empty, I use Bitcoin every single day to store value.
Jimmy Song.
Well, I mean, these guys don't know anything. I don't understand why we pay attention to them, right? Like, I mean, they're talking about stuff as if they know anything, and they don't. They don't know anything about Bitcoin. They probably don't know how it works. They certainly don't know the technology behind it, or have looked at any of the code. So I don't know why you'd listen to them. I mean, in a sense, it's sort of this old thing in I guess media. I guess it's an appeal to authority. And they see themselves as authorities on this stuff. Doesn't really work. I mean, their policies, the people that caused the financial crises in the past 20 years or past 100 years, they're all people that are they're the type of people that are criticizing Bitcoin, right? Like they're the ones that are saying, oh, you need to have banks and all this other stuff. And I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me that anyone in Bitcoin, at least, would pay attention to them. And if you know what Bitcoin is and you know how little experience or have in this stuff, then you wouldn't pay any attention. Would you like, talk to? Would you listen to somebody, that's not an expert, like that's not a doctor, like tell you like what to, what you need to do to fix your broken bone or something like that? It doesn't make any sense, right? Like it's like asking a plumber about your health. I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. I see Bitcoin largely as a store of value, and people are going to see it as a bubble and say all kinds of things, but generally, we have time on our side. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. As long as it's a good store of value and we keep security and all this other stuff, it's going to keep going up because there's only a limited amount. And this is, kind of why people say invest in real estate. They're not making any more of it, right? Like it's the same with Bitcoin. They're not going to make any more of it. There's a fixed amount. So there's increasing demand and a fixed supply. What's going to happen to the price? Duh, it's going to go up, right? Like, and and as long as you believe in that, and as long as that's true, you can just wait out all these idiots and just keep going with it, and you'll be okay.
Another metaphor to bring forward on this is it's similar to DEA agents who made their career on marijuana busts, and now they can't understand marijuana legalization. The times have changed, and you have to change your views. You can't keep going back to the same sources because they don't understand the new times. Tone Vase.
Yeah, this is a weird story. Like, I'm not gonna say that these old financial guys don't understand what's going on. They generally understand, but like the way, again, this is a hard one, right? Like the way all of us make fun of Jamie Dimon is the way all of these altcoiners are making fun of us about the altcoins. Like, oh, you don't understand. You don't understand Zcash. Oh, you don't understand Dash. And the answer is yes, we do. No, yes, we actually do. So you're right. When it comes to Jamie Dimon, and I've said this before on the show, he did not study Bitcoin. He did not look into Bitcoin. But he's not some guy sitting in front of a computer watching shows. The man's busy. And if the man starts asking, people like low-level people at his company to explain this to him, it can get real ugly, right? Because like then the confidence in the CEO could be shaken, right? Like when you're at a certain stature, you're not supposed to show weakness. That's bad. That's bad for the price of your company to begin with, okay? Also, you don't know whether he does or doesn't understand it. That's a political position to him. He might understand Bitcoin perfectly, but it's not to his advantage to support it because he has customers and he needs to keep them at his bank. He doesn't want to send them to Bitcoin. He needs to keep confidence in the financial system, and he's probably auditioning for the job as the Treasury Secretary or the chair of the Federal Reserve. So it's not in his personal best interest. It's not in his corporate best interest to support Bitcoin. And you guys have to understand that it's not in his best interest, right? Like, it wasn't in Blockbuster's best interest to support Netflix, right? I mean, yeah, they should have merged with them. They should have tried to do what they're doing. And to be honest, JP Morgan is almost doing it. I mean, if JP Morgan wants to compete with Bitcoin, start lobbying the government to lower regulation on money laundering. And they will be better than Bitcoin, okay? If Jamie Dimon becomes Treasury Secretary and he wants to eliminate Bitcoin, all he has to do is convince Donald Trump that money laundering laws should be abolished. If money laundering laws get abolished, Bitcoin is down to one use case, just one, okay? And that use case is deflationary money. And we don't know if that's better. We really don't. We really don't. People say how terrible inflationary money is, but look at all of the innovation and technological innovation we've had in the last 100 years since the creation of the Federal Reserve. You don't know if we'd have the internet today if we were still on the gold standard. You don't know. You don't know what would have happened if we had deflationary money. You don't know if we'd still all be farming.
You also don't know if we'd be on the moon with colonies. I mean, like, that's kind of speculation, right? Like, you don't know if it was good or bad in that way.
That's exactly, Jimmy. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? So we don't know if deflationary money is better than inflationary money because we kind of keep going with both. So we don't know what would have happened if the Fed wasn't created. If the U.S. government can easily compete with Bitcoin, all they have to do is eliminate money laundering laws. And if Jamie Dimon wants to do that, if he goes to the government with high stature, then Bitcoin becomes in serious jeopardy with the elimination of money laundering laws.
Fortunately, I think Bitcoin is incredibly safe because there's no way the government will eliminate money laundering laws. If anything, they'll make them more draconian. Let's move on to the exit question. Will bankers call for an all-out ban of cryptocurrencies in the near future? Yes or no? Jeffrey Jones.
No, not even close. That'd be like banning the internet. Not going to happen.
Jimmy Song.
I don't think they will. I think the direction they're going to go is they're going to try to become Bitcoin banks. I think the SEC chairman said something about that. Like if a Bitcoin company wants to apply for a banking license, we're all ears, something like that. And I can see them do that. I think what they will do though is once they have a lot of Bitcoin, they're going to start lending it out fractionally and try to print Bitcoin. But that's a game that's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
Tone Vase.
I think so. I think they'll try. I think they'll try. I think they're going to try and ban it, but we'll see.
The answer is yes. Much like the movie piracy and the MP3s, the banks will try to ban their opponents using the political forces that they control. Unfortunately, Bitcoin is on the internet, and the internet is flexible. It sees censorship as damage and routes around it. They will be unsuccessful, but they'll try. Moving on to issue 4, Russia ban. Well, China banned ICOs and closed their Bitcoin exchanges, and South Korea only banned ICOs. Russia is now looking at a complete ban on payments in cryptocurrency. The bill will still need to be debated in the Duma, but it is said that no regulator doubts that the payments will be banned. Meanwhile, in China, while the ban may be law, it's not stopping traders from trading cryptocurrencies, with users trading directly and even some saying that ICOs are still being marketed to Chinese investors. Jimmy Song, will Russia ban cryptocurrencies? And more importantly, will the ban be successful?
Well, I hadn't actually read that story, but it's very interesting that it says that it's only banning payments. So you can still use it as a store of value or buy it directly. You just don't use it for payments. I don't see how that hurts Bitcoin at all, because I don't think the medium of exchange part is that important a component. I think value is. So, I mean, even if it passes, I don't know if it really does anything. There aren't that many people going and buying things with Bitcoin. I mean, despite all the hype, doesn't happen that much, right? Like almost all of the traffic on Bitcoin blocks and stuff are to and from exchanges or to wallet services and things of that nature. So, I mean, it might pass. I think it's just sort of like it seems like a bigger deal than it is, because I don't think people actually will use it for that reason. And maybe international remittances, but then I'm not sure if Russia has like jurisdiction over that, right? Like it's only within Russia that you'd want to pay, in which case you'd probably use some other payment method. If you're paying somebody in the United States for some good that, you know, you're getting shipped to Russia, yeah, that might Russia might be fine with that. I don't know. Anyway, or not they will actually ban payments, but I have no doubt that nobody can stop this crypto stuff, because, you know, there's all sorts of ways to connect to the Bitcoin blockchain. There's not only the internet with VPN and all this other stuff, but there's also the Blockstream satellite. And that's a way that you can receive transactions. You can send transactions via SMS, probably other ways. People figure out some radio signal or something like that. If you try to ban it, you know, there's so many ways around it. I mean, technically you could probably use a carrier pigeon to like carry a USB stick all the way over to, you know, some other country and then like have it plugged in or something. There's so many ways in which this can work that I really can't see any sort of ban being at all successful. And I actually want a ban to happen, because I believe that it will make Bitcoin stronger, because it will force people to make these other solutions like our carrier pigeon or whatever. You know, people will figure out other ways to connect, and that actually makes Bitcoin more secure. And this is why we say that Bitcoin is anti-fragile, because anytime you do something to add disorder to the system, well, people come around it and make the system even stronger than it was before. It gains from disorder, and that's a good thing. So I say, try banning me. Try banning me, you know, right? Like it's okay. Like, go bring it on. I dare you. Like, Russia, go ahead and ban Bitcoin in whatever way you think will happen. And I think Bitcoin will survive, not just survive, but thrive in that sort of situation.
Let's go on to Tone Vase.
All right, so this is where you and I differ a little bit, Jimmy. So you said that you kind of want the ban to happen. I don't want the ban to happen. I just think that it's inevitable. And I think it's going to happen, even though I don't want it to happen. And people in the chat seem to be, you know, very upset at me, but I'm the one that's being realistic here. You guys are making fun of the banks. You're making fun of Jamie Dimon, the biggest bank in the world. You're slapping the government, the U.S. government, in the face with these ICOs and talking about how Bitcoin is going to bring you down. Like, picture, you know, you go to like some biker bar, you find the biggest biker you have, and you start smacking him in the face, saying how you're going to take over. What the hell do you think is going to happen to you? Do you think they're not going to fight back? Come on. Come on. Like, this is silly, right? It's like, oh, I'm being negative. I'm not the one that's, you know, smacking the government in the face, telling him how Bitcoin's going to eat his lunch, right? It's like you come up to a bully, and what do you think is going to happen? The bully's going to punch you in the face. So that's kind of my view on it. So yeah, it's coming. It's coming, and the more you bait them, the faster it's going to come.
It's also worth noting, going back to Jimmy's points, as Andreas's comment of saying, we could sneak our transactions into an image of kittens. You could post the image on some board somewhere. You could get your transactions that way. And I also think it's worth saying that the ban would be an incredibly great for Bitcoin advertising. Everyone who hasn't heard about it would hear about it the minute it's banned. And a lot of people, especially in other countries, they don't trust their governments. And when the government bans something, they know that's the time to get into it. Gold was banned in the United States. Other things have been banned, and they only became more popular. Let's go to Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Tone is, I mean, we definitely need your point of view, Tone, for people to remain vigilant, to remain skeptical and things like that. But look, at the end of the day, money is now information, okay? When money is information, you cannot stop that. You can put that in a meme. You can put that in an image. You can put that in a radio wave. You cannot stop it. The Pandora's box has been opened. Now, remember, Tone, that the phone companies fought the internet too, and they turned into ISPs. This is similar to how it's going to play out here, because they saw the opportunity. They saw the business opportunity. They saw what's going to happen. They saw that everything, and I mean freaking everything, is going to go over the internet. Your telephone companies, your media, everything. They saw that. They eventually saw it. They didn't see it at first, obviously, hence the fighting. But eventually they saw it and turned into ISPs. Same thing will happen here. When you see opportunity that is much greater than anything that you've ever seen in your life, you're going to change your mind about a few things. And so this is my view. And remember also that one country's ban is another country's gain. If one country bans it, some other country is going to freaking accept it wholeheartedly and build a huge economic global model out of it. And, so there's just at this point, no way of putting anything back in the box. We are here. This is the age of crypto. This is the new global financial renaissance, and it's not going anywhere.
It's also worth noting, going back through history, that the copyright industry was created because of player pianos. Player pianos were going to destroy live performances. If you go again, we could say cassette tapes are killing the music industry. We could go to VCRs, which are going to destroy the movie industry with their ability to record films, and then on to piracy, which they actually found the pirates are the ones who buy all the music. The pirates are the ones that go to all the concerts. The pirates go to more movies per year than anyone else. It happens again and again. But let's move on.
Round we go.
That's exactly it. Let's move on to the exit question. The indomitable Gandhi quote once again comes to mind when describing Bitcoin. First, they will ignore you. Then they will laugh at you. Then they will fight you. Then you will win. Jimmy Song, force prediction. Will the governments be successful in banning Bitcoin? Yes or no?
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. Of course not. Of course not. I mean, it'll be used somewhere at some point. Like even if every government in the world bans it, it's just too useful for it not to be usable. And I don't know. I mean, FDR tried this with gold, where he just sort of confiscated every gold ounce that he can find, and then inflated the U.S. dollar against it. I mean, that's sort of the thing that I think governments will try to do, but it's completely impractical, just given how easy it is to store Bitcoin, and have no trace of it anywhere, right? Like you can just leave it in your brain if you wanted to. You could put it into like an image of a kitten, like you were saying. Like there's so many ways to hide your Bitcoin that there's no way that anyone's going to be able to successfully ban it.
Tone Vase.
I think we're entering out of the laughing stage and starting to get into the fighting stage. I think once we get out of our own way with these damn hard forks, and once, honestly, I think $10,000 per Bitcoin is the make or break level. And I think it has a lot to do with pricing notation. I think I've said it on this show. I think we've all pretty much agreed that once a Bitcoin is, consistently above $10,000, it might be time to go to bit notation, where one bit is worth, 1 to 2 pennies. And at that point, you are directly competing with the US dollar when you're pricing Bitcoin in pennies, right? When you're pricing bits in pennies, it becomes a very user-friendly pricing notation. So I think at that point, the fighting against Bitcoin is really going to ramp up. So that's my official, war on Bitcoin by governments gets declared once Bitcoin goes to bit notation, and bit notation is coming once we break $10,000.
Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, I also agree with Tone that 10,000 really is the magical number, because at that point, that gets really difficult for governments to even start attacking Bitcoin. I mean, that kills all sorts of attack vectors just being that high physically. Like a government, almost very few governments can afford to attack Bitcoin at that type of price levels. And, to answer your question, the question, Thomas, I mean, what happens when gold got banned? What happens when marijuana got banned? What happens when they put up the Great Firewall of China? Utility, if something has utility, it will find a way. You know, just like, you know, cue the Jeff Goldblum, but it will find a way.
Yeah, it will find a way, but it's going to be a struggle, man. I mean, look at the marijuana laws. Look how many people have been sitting in prison for smoking marijuana. And no offense, man, like I don't smoke marijuana. I mean, I've tried it once or twice, but I'm not a smoker. And look, I'm not gonna go again. I mean, I wouldn't want to sit in the prison over smoking a freaking plant, right? So yeah, it's a 40-year struggle. And no one cared about gold after it became banned. So yeah, it finds a way, but it takes a generation or two, and a lot of people just say, you know what, it's just not worth it. So yeah, banning Bitcoin is gonna have an effect. Now it's gonna fight through it and it's gonna win, but it might be up to our kids to get it done and potentially not us, right? So we'll see how it goes.
And that's okay, Toe. And I think a lot of people are okay with that. A lot of people know that we are up against the most powerful people in the world. A lot of people know that this is going to play out over decades.
Right.
And, you know.
Right, and people in China are still fighting for free internet, and people in North Korea haven't even started fighting for free internet, right? So look, banning something works pretty well from the eyes of the government that is banning it. And banning marijuana for 40 years did create a lot of jobs for the government. I mean, granted, they were wasting taxpayer money. I'm not saying this was a good use of the money, but yeah, there was a lot of people making good money from the ban of marijuana. And a lot of people do not want to see marijuana be legal because their job becomes irrelevant. You got to look at it from the other point of view.
Right, right. But I mean, you also have to look at it from a global point of view. You can't just say, well, okay, it's going to take a generation. If the other economies that are using Bitcoin do much better, there is going to be some motive to relook at things. I mean, I think people are saying with respect to marijuana or whatever, I mean, nothing that terrible happened to Amsterdam as a result of, you know, legalizing it.
I agree with you. I agree
legalized all drugs. Portugal legalized all drugs. They saw a reduction across the board.
Right, and guess what? Nobody cares. Like the other governments don't really care, right? This is the point.
Okay,
right?
so with that stuff, it's such a small impact on the economy. Governments aren't going to look at it as much. With Bitcoin, I think it's a much larger.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But again, like I'm here to make people think, and America was booming throughout the the 70s and 80s and 90s, and Russia and China were still communist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always that simple, because once you're in power, your job is to maintain that power at whatever cost. And government, if anyone doesn't want to admit a mistake, it's government. Like I think Roger Ver will admit a mistake before the government admits a mistake, right?
Also, those anti-money laundering laws that you always speak out against, Tone, were initiated in the 70s to fight the drug cartels. I also want to take into account that we are on crypto time, so you can multiply that by 4. So I'd say instead of 10 years, maybe 2 or 3 years. And going back to the marijuana issue, John Lennon did sing a song once about a man who was sent to jail for 2 joints for 10 years. However, after he sang that song, they let him free. Let's go to Jimmy Song. Did we cover you on the exit question?
What? Oh yeah. I think it's a no. Yeah, I think it's a no. Yeah.
And I'm going to go with yes. The governments will attempt to ban Bitcoin, but much like trying to ban the internet, trying to ban MP3s, trying to ban video piracy, it will be unsuccessful. So let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Jimmy Song, you ready with a story of the week?
Sure. I got my Blockstream satellite. I started assembling it a little bit better after. Whoop. All right. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So this came off, but yeah, I'm gonna put this back and have this thing. It's got everything. I gotta hook it up, and then I gotta install some software, make everything work. But that was an interesting adventure trying to put that together live on air on Tuesday.
Hey Jimmy, I missed that part, and I also I had to say something, so I missed where you started. Are you talking about you getting DirecTV, or this has to do with the Bitcoin nodes in space?
Jimmy
this
is getting on the internet superhighway. He's gonna.
This is the Blockstream satellite. This is something that they sent me. They sent me a DirecTV dish, and all the parts that I need to hook it up to a computer.
This makes so much more sense, because when I went back to the TV, I'm like, is Jimmy so excited he finally has TV in his house? Because I know you don't watch TV based on how much work you do. So I know you haven't turned that thing on in 3 years.
They finally got satellite TV in Texas. He's all set.
No. I do need to mount it. It has to be completely level, and then I have to hook it into a computer. I have to install a bunch of software on there. People are asking me why don't you just use a live CD and then install that way? Well, the reason I can't do that is I need to compile all this stuff from source. So it's going to take several hours to compile everything. And if at any point I mess up and I need to start over and I turn off the computer, then I have to start all over again. So that's gonna, I'm leaning towards just dual booting one of my laptops and adding Linux to it, and then doing all that stuff. But yeah, it requires Bitcoin Fiber. It requires GNU Radio. It requires software that hooks up the GNU Radio to satellite, and then I need the Blockstream software. It's a lot of work. So I need to get some sort of. I was thinking about just buying a Linux laptop, but I don't know. There aren't that many for sale used, and if I want to get one new, then. Yeah, I think the only one that's really there that comes installed with Ubuntu is Dell, and I don't know. They're kind of expensive. So anyway, so that's one story of the week. The other one is programming blockchain. We have a scholarship available for the Santa Monica location. Please apply. We're going to announce the winner on Tuesday on my show. I recently announced earlier today that we have dates for the London one. It's going to be January 22nd and 23rd. It's going to be within London proper. I'll send you the address once you apply and get in and you pay. Then I send you the address. So yeah, it's very interested in already, and I've sent out one batch of acceptance letters. I'd love to send out more. There may be scholarship opportunities going forward besides Santa Monica, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, that's all I have for this week.
All right, let's go to Tone Vase.
Yeah, so everyone wants me to do price, so we'll do price. But hey, I'm having a great time here in Milan. Huge shout out to the Blockchain Lab and the Scam Coin bot. So it's been a lot of fun. We had the meetup yesterday. It was an outdoor meetup. You guys should have seen pictures. Check out my Twitter. It's actually funny. I got to meet Lawrence, the core developer and the creator of Green Address Wallet. So that was really cool. So I'm meeting a lot of great people here. Shout out to Mir. Shout out to Giacomo Zucco. It's been great. All right, now it's time to talk price. All right, let me do my screen share. All right, so we covered it this morning a little bit. The weekly chart is neutral. It remains neutral. I'm waiting for prices to flip. It'll probably flip around $5,000, okay? So here's what you have to realize. The last time I called a buy in Bitcoin on a weekly chart was at $2,825. So this was the last condition right here. This was the week of July 31st was the last time the weekly chart went bullish, and the weekly chart went neutral with the recent crash in prices from 5,000 to 3,000, and it remains neutral. So the weekly chart was never on a short play, but it's setting up for a new long play. The daily chart, I drew all of these arrows on my show the other day. We have broken out about 4,100. That was my level. At the time, I totally missed the Fibonacci resistance at 4,200. I covered it this morning. We have now stayed at this resistance point for 3 days straight. The market isn't accommodating. This is now a double top. We're going higher. I don't consider 4,600 a major top. That's it. It's open air. Open air. I don't care about the regulatory environment. I don't care about, you know, political environment in Bitcoin. Who cares? The technical chart is on a buy point daily. I see no more serious resistance going up to 5,000. And once we get to 5,000, I'm expecting a big breakout. Zooming into the 4-hour chart, I drew these arrows in the other day. Once we fell a little lower, I drew another arrow. I mean, I was always bullish. Here is that Fibonacci. Well, it's pretty much the same Fibonacci, 4,200. This one is at the high at 4,260. We're going to break above it. Again, I'm fully bullish. On the hourly chart, there was a 13 right here telling you to be cautious. There was a prior 13 here telling you to be cautious. We have now exhausted both of these bullish momentums. So if we flip around and make a new high, we will start a brand new count. Just bullish across the board. But guess where I'm bearish? Here's your B trash. Your B trash. Just wait till we go below 0.1. Might have to start calling it C trash. It's not good. Not good, guys. You got to do something. I don't know what you're going to do, but you got to do something. Spend more money. Burn more money. Burn more Bitcoin. Come on. Sell it. Sell it. Support your B trash. Sell the Bitcoin. That's pretty much it. There were some really funny tweets going around, but check them out. Go to the tweets that I got tagged in from the event. So some cool stuff there. All right, guys, I'll leave it at that.
All right, thanks, Tone. Let's go to Jeffrey Jones. What do you have for story of the week?
Yeah, I think I agree with Tone. They're going to have to like make more signs that says Bitcoin Cash has more users and developers than Bitcoin. I don't think they're making enough signs for Roger to stand in front of you. So they got to try that. But yeah, I got a couple stories of the week real quick to close out the show. So the first one is that Charlie Lee, of course, creator of Litecoin, did join the No 2X movement on Twitter and threw his weight of 150K followers behind it. And it's been absolutely great. A lot of feedback, a lot of people talking about it, and a lot more people joining in the movement. So, I mean, you know, people were criticizing it a little bit, saying like, okay, look, we want decentralized governments, and all we got were hats and no 2X stickers, right? But look, this is how we're trying. This is how decentralized systems work. This is how FOSS works. No one single person is in control. So what the users do is we voice our concern. We let the CEOs know how we feel. We let the miners know how we feel, and this is what's going on. And so it's absolutely fascinating to watch this movement unfold, and I really think it's going absolutely great. It just continues to grow. So more and more people leaving the New York agreement and things like that. So very great. We just one quick last story. This is interesting, you know, because it's actually about Bruce Fenton, who I unfollowed many months ago, but yet has come back into my Twitter sphere with this pretty amazing thing called Spacesuit X, which is an open source analysis method for digital assets. So we spoke a lot about ICOs today, and about how we hope that one day in the future the people will be able to evaluate them better and have less scams, and this might be one of the paths to that end. So I encourage everybody to check out Spacesuit X. Bruce Fenton has a Medium post about it, and it is really cool. If just Google Spacesuit X, and I really highly recommend people check that out. It's going to be thought-provoking and really make you think, like, how can we evaluate these freaking ICOs that are just popping up every second of every day? And so that's about it for me.
Hey, one last thing, one more shout out. There you go. One more shout out to Samson.
When did you get that? I need to put together my satellite, and then I think Samson will send me one of those.
Samson needs to sell more hats in the European theater, because I haven't seen it.
Unfortunately, it's not mine. So Samson, if you're watching, I want my own. I don't want to get arrested for stealing this. All right.
They are available now to buy, by the way. They are available to buy.
Well, they're traveling.
But you need to have a steady address if you want to receive mail.
Send it to the conference in Prague. Have them
No, I'm gonna. No, I mean, he should be at the scaling event. No.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways in which you can get this hat. But yeah, I've been wanting that hat for a while. I think that's like the most beautiful one that he's produced so far, and we all know that Samson is a hat marketing genius. So
It would be nice to get my hands on one of those hats. And as Jeff mentioned, Bruce Fenton, originally I'd kind of disagreed with him about the kind of elitist attitude of Satoshi Roundtable, but I think he dialed that back in the other years, and it just kind of became a CEOs hanging out, talking high level. So actually, Bruce has been really cool to me on Twitter. And yeah, he's definitely back in my good graces too. So shout out.
Oh, maybe he'll invite you to this like powwow that everybody goes to. Then
that's
in Mexico or something.
I'm not asking for that, but no,
that's how I always saw it. That's how I was never. I'm critical of Bruce Fenton for many things, but Satoshi Roundtable was not one of them because that's exactly how I saw it from the beginning.
Yeah, it just rubbed me wrong in the beginning. Had a lot of Knights of the Round Table. Strange limits on the numbers, but no, he's cool now. It's cool. I'm not mad at him at all. So I just want to give a shout out to my friends Justin and Paloma for hosting me here in Berlin. We had a great time today. We went around to some of the sites. I saw the Brandenburg Gate and I saw the Reichstag, which apparently had a small fire but didn't burn down completely. It's still a very large stone building, very nice in Germany here. We're going to try to have a Bitcoin meetup next week here in Berlin. I am aware that the meetup's on Thursday, but I won't be in town on Thursday, so we might try to meet up at a bar or something, maybe on Tuesday. It's kind of a good day for meetups. And I won't be in town Thursday because I'm traveling to Prague, where Tone will be to go to the Hacker Congress at Paralinzy Polis. And that's going to be really exciting, the third Bitcoin event that I'll be attending in Europe. I had a great time at the Blockchain Hotel Conference in Essen. And as Jimmy and Tone both know, we had a great time in Paris at Breaking Bitcoin. So I think that the Prague conference is going to be fantastic as well. And I just want to thank people for supporting me on Twitter. I did get a couple of donations to my Send Mad Bitcoins to Berlin QR code today. So thank you so much for your support. If you do like my pictures on Twitter, please donate to my travel fund. And if you like this show, go ahead and donate right here to our donation button. If you want to send us a super chat or anything else, that'd be cool. And we do these shows for free, and we try to do our best to give them to you every week. Apologies for missing the last couple of weeks. As you know, we're traveling in Europe, and the time zones are all wacky. I don't even know what time it is on the West Coast right now, and usually that's a very important thing to me. So thanks so much to our 674 viewers or so for joining us live, giving us those thumbs up and the share. If it's your first time here, please subscribe down below because we do these updates almost every day. And one more thing, you should check out the Bitcoin News Show on Sunday. You should check out Jimmy Song's new Off-Chain Show. We just had another episode recently. And of course, the Today in Bitcoin Show, which Tone and I have been doing almost every day. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back again soon. Bye-bye.